The late 15th century hummed with a new energy. European minds, stirred by Renaissance curiosity, looked outwards. Beyond their known world lay the fabled East. India, in particular, shimmered in their imaginations. It was a land of immense wealth, of spices and silks. These commodities were worth more than gold in Europe. The overland routes, controlled by Venetian and Ottoman powers, were costly. A direct sea route to the Indies became a consuming obsession. This quest would reshape India and the world. It marked the dawn of a new, often brutal era. Spices like pepper, cloves, and cinnamon were in high demand. They seasoned bland European food and served as medicines. The profits from this trade were astronomical. Whoever controlled the source would control immense riches. The arrival of Europeans would irrevocably alter India's destiny. It introduced new technologies, new religions, and new conflicts. The seeds of colonialism were sown with those first voyages. The Portuguese spearheaded this maritime revolution. Prince Henry the Navigator had long championed exploration. Bartolomeu Dias rounded the Cape of Good Hope in 1488. This momentous event proved a sea route to India was possible. Vasco da Gama became the man to achieve this feat. He set sail from Lisbon in July 1497 with 4 ships. His mission was clear reach India and secure trade. The voyage was arduous, facing storms and scurvy. Using the monsoon winds, they crossed the Indian Ocean. In May 1498, da Gama's fleet anchored off Calicut. The Zamarin, the Hindu ruler of Calicut, received da Gama. Initial interactions were cautious, tinged with curiosity. The Portuguese offered modest gifts, which were underwhelming. The established Arab traders viewed the newcomers with suspicion. Da Gama struggled to secure favorable trading terms. Though he had lost 2 ships and many men, he brought back spices. The sea route to India was now a reality. Following Vasco da Gama, Portugal moved swiftly. They aimed to establish a maritime empire, the Estado da India. Pedro Álvares Cabral led the second major expedition in 1500. His fleet was larger and more heavily armed than da Gama's. Cabral established the first Portuguese factory in Calicut. However, relations with the Zamarin quickly deteriorated. Conflicts erupted, leading to bombardment of the city. A key figure in consolidating Portuguese power was Afonso de Albuquerque. He served as governor of Portuguese India from 1509 to 1515. Albuquerque's most significant conquest in India was Goa. He captured the city from the Sultan of Bijapur in 1510. Goa became the capital of the Portuguese Estado da India. They introduced the Cartaz system, a naval trade license. Ships trading in the Indian Ocean had to buy this permit. The Portuguese impact was multifaceted. By the early 17th century, their dominance began to wane. The 17th century witnessed the rise of the Dutch. The Netherlands, having gained independence from Spain, was ambitious. The Portuguese monopoly on the spice trade was their prime target. In 1602, the Dutch East India Company, or VOC, was formed. The VOC had quasi-governmental powers, including waging war. The Dutch focused initially on the Spice Islands, now Indonesia. They systematically ousted the Portuguese from this lucrative region. Gradually, they turned their attention to India as well. India was a source of textiles, indigo, and saltpeter. The Dutch established their first factory in Masulipatam in 1605. Other important settlements included Pulicat, Surat, and Chinsura. Dutch trade methods were highly organized and efficient. They were less driven by religious zeal than the Portuguese. Their primary motivation was profit and commercial dominance. The Dutch maintained a strong naval presence to protect their interests. However, Dutch influence in India was not as deep as in Indonesia. By the mid-18th century, Dutch power began to decline. Northern aspirations, the Danes, and other Europeans in India. Denmark was one such nation with royal ambitions for Eastern trade. King Christian IV chartered the Danish East India Company in 1616. Persistence led to the establishment of a foothold. In 1620, they acquired land from the Nayak of Tanjore. This became their primary settlement, Tranquebar or Tharangambadi. The Danes focused on textile trade and local commerce. Tranquebar developed into a well-fortified Danish town. Fort Dansborg stood as a symbol of their presence. The Danes generally maintained a policy of neutrality. Serampore, near Calcutta in Bengal, became another important Danish center. Established in 1755, it flourished as a trading hub. The Danish presence in India lasted for over 2 centuries. They engaged in trade of cotton textiles, pepper, and other goods. Unlike other powers, they rarely pursued aggressive territorial expansion. The missionaries in Serampore, like William Carey, made lasting contributions. The Danish chapter is a quieter yet interesting part of the story. The Danes sold their Indian possessions to the British in 1845. France's Indian dream, Colbert's vision, and Pondicherry's rise. France was a relative latecomer to the Indian Ocean trade. Early French attempts in the 16th and early 17th centuries were unsuccessful. It was under King Louis XIV and his finance minister, Jean-Baptiste Colbert, that efforts intensified. In 1664, the French East India Company was formed. They received royal patronage and substantial capital. Initial efforts were slow and faced many difficulties. The first French factory in India was established at Surat in 1668. François Caron, a Dutchman formerly with the VOC, led this initiative. Another factory was soon set up at Masulipatam in 1669. In 1673, François Martin acquired a small village on the Coromandel coast. This village, Puducherry, would grow into the famed Pondicherry. Pondicherry became the capital of French India. It was well-planned, fortified, and attracted Indian merchants and artisans. French ambitions in India were not solely commercial. They also harbored political and territorial aspirations. The dream of a French India, though potent, would ultimately be thwarted. Clash of Titans, the Carnatic Wars, and the Anglo-French struggle. The mid-18th century in southern India was a period of intense conflict. The English and French East India Companies vied for supremacy. This rivalry manifested in three major conflicts known as the Carnatic Wars. Fought between 1746 and 1763, these wars were extensions of European conflicts. The Carnatic region on the Coromandel coast was the primary theater. The Battle of Wandiwash in 1760 was a decisive English victory. Britain emerged as the dominant European power in the subcontinent. The company that ruled Britain's East India Company takes root. The English East India Company, or EIC, began modestly. It received its royal charter from Queen Elizabeth I on December 31, 1600. This granted it a monopoly on trade with the East Indies. Early voyages targeted the Spice Islands. Dutch competition pushed them towards India. In 1608, Captain William Hawkins sought to establish a trading post. Sir Thomas Roe secured trading rights in 1615. The first English factory was established at Surat. This marked the beginning of English presence in India. The EIC expanded its trading posts. Madras, Bombay, and Calcutta became presidencies. The company traded in cotton, silk, indigo, saltpeter, and tea. Plassey's Echoes the Die is cast for British supremacy. The mid-18th century marked a crucial turning point for the English East India Company. Its focus shifted from trade to territorial control. Bengal, the richest Mughal province, became the target. Ruled by Nawab Siraj-ud-Dowla, disputes arose over trading privileges. The EIC's fortification of Calcutta angered the Nawab. In 1756, Siraj-ud-Dowla captured Calcutta. Robert Clive recaptured it in early 1757. The Battle of Plassey on June 23, 1757 was decisive. Siraj-ud-Dowla was defeated and later assassinated. Mir Jafar became the puppet Nawab. The EIC became the de facto ruler of Bengal. Conclusion. From trading posts to empire, a recapitulation. The journey of Europeans in India spanned several centuries. It began with the Portuguese quest for spices in the late 15th century. Vasco da Gama's arrival in 1498 opened a direct sea route. This event fundamentally altered India's relationship with Europe. The Portuguese established an early maritime presence, centered around Goa. They sought a monopoly on the lucrative spice trade. Their factory system of fortified trading posts became a model. However, their dominance was challenged by other European nations. The Dutch East India Company emerged as a formidable rival in the 17th century. The French East India Company entered the scene with significant ambitions. Pondicherry became their main base, and figures like Dupleix sought political influence. This led to intense Anglo-French rivalry, culminating in the Carnatic Wars. Ultimately, the English East India Company proved most successful. Established by a Charter Act in 1600, it steadily grew in power. The Battle of Plassey in 1757 was a pivotal turning point. The British East India Company transformed from a commercial enterprise into an imperial power. The foundations of the British Raj were firmly established.